Radiant barriers are perhaps one of the least understood concepts in the building industry, along with vapor barriers. Now, we've all seen and heard about how radiant barriers are crucial for a cooler roof or cooler attic because they reflect radiant heat and the foil has low emissivity. But there's a lot of confusion when it comes to specifying a radiant barrier, where and when it should be specified, as it relates to its material properties, and whether specifying one could actually increase your risk of a moisture problem in the future. Now, there's tons of manufacturers out there who are trying to peddle radiant barrier products without telling you about some of the risks, and it's something that we're seeing more and more often, and I think they're doing a disservice to their customers who don't understand the substantial long-term durability implications. So here's what they're not telling you. Radiant barrier products that have a foil facer are vapor barriers. The foil facing is highly vapor impermeable. It's a class 1 vapor retarder, meaning that water vapor virtually has no ability to diffuse through this material. Why should we care about this? Buildings dry out through vapor diffusion. When we specify a class 1 vapor retarder, we need to be extremely careful about trapping moisture within the assembly. Now, sometimes that doesn't matter if the radiant barrier is in the right location within the assembly, whether that's a roof or a wall or a floor system, but oftentimes this is highly climate dependent and project dependent. That's the other thing. The radiant barrier needs to face an air gap for it to actually reflect radiant energy, otherwise it's just conduction, and it also needs to face the source of the radiant energy. So if we're building in a hot climate, we want that radiant barrier foil to face the exterior, and it needs to face an air gap. You also need to make sure that the sheathing has the ability to dry out if it gets wet from condensation or from a leak, and that's exactly the problem when we have radiant barrier sheathing materials, because these often are trapping moisture within the assembly unless the sheathing can dry back to the interior. Let's talk about some scenarios where we often see radiant barriers being installed in the wrong location, where it substantially increases the risk of a moisture failure. We'll talk about two common cases that we see in vented attics. In this first scenario, we have a typical vented attic that's been sheathed with foil-faced plywood or OSB. You probably know the products I'm talking about. The foil faces inwards towards the attic. On the opposite side of the sheathing, we have a roof underlayment. It could be felt paper or a synthetic underlayment, and asphalt shingles. If the sheathing gets wet, it can't dry upwards to the exterior because asphalt shingles and most roof underlayments are vapor retarders. We can't dry downwards because that foil is bonded to the interior surface of the plywood or OSB, so we've essentially created a vapor sandwich inside this part of the assembly. In a traditional vented attic, the exterior sheathing has the ability to dry downwards into the vented attic space. That's what makes vented attics so forgiving. They have abundant drying potential. By having that foil facing inwards and the impermeable roof coverings above, any water that leaks through fastener penetrations, imperfections in the underlayment, or some other installation flaw will have no ability to dry out, and if it can't dry, it's going to rot out fairly quickly. It's also kind of silly to have the radiant barrier facing inwards because the only radiant heat that you're reflecting is coming from the interior. So you're still getting conductive heat transfer through the roof assembly, and you're only reflecting the heat radiating from the interior. The other scenario that we tend to see is the radiant barrier installed on the attic floor over the insulation. Now, this is actually not bad from a thermal perspective, as you have the radiant barrier in the right location to reflect radiant energy from the exterior, but having a vapor barrier above the insulation means that you're going to trap moisture diffusing out of the ceiling between the insulation. One of the nice things about a vented attic is the inherent moisture removal benefits. If we have moisture diffusing through the ceiling, it can just simply vent out. By putting a radiant barrier on top of the insulation, which is a vapor barrier, we're going to trap moisture between the radiant barrier and the ceiling, and you could get condensation drips on the underside of the radiant barrier during the colder months of the year or whenever that surface reaches the dew point temperature. Another problem with this method is that dust will have a tendency to collect on the surface of that radiant barrier foil over time. If there's dust covering the radiant barrier, it's no longer effective at reflecting radiant energy because the gap has been eliminated. So if we want the benefits of a radiant barrier for a vented attic, we want the radiant barrier to actually be installed on the outside of the sheathing, facing a ventilated roof covering, or the roof covering itself can be a radiant barrier, like a reflective metal roof. This way, we're reflecting the source of the radiant energy, and if the sheathing gets wet, it can easily dry downwards into the vented attic space, so we aren't compromising the long-term durability of the roof assembly. Now let's talk about walls, because there's two situations where a radiant barrier can really compromise the durability of the system. The first one is foil-faced batt insulation. This is probably the most common use of a radiant barrier in a wall assembly, and it's basically just foil that's bonded to fiberglass batt insulation. Again, the foil is a vapor barrier, so if you have a foil-faced bat inside the wall cavity, you'll be trapping moisture diffusing in and out of that wall system. If the foil is facing inwards, it's not actually doing its job as a radiant barrier because there's no air gap, but more importantly, you're completely inhibiting inward vapor drive. So when it's warm outside, and if you're air conditioning the interior space, vapor that diffuses from the outside inwards has no ability to dry to the interior, and you'll get condensation on the backside of the foil, which can be enough to support mold growth and even rot inside the framing. Ask us how we know. If you have the foil facing on the opposite side towards the sheathing, again, it's not going to provide the benefits of a radiant barrier because it's not facing an air gap, and you're going to prevent moisture from drying out to the exterior, and you could see condensation form on the backside of that foil during the colder months when vapor drive is from the inside outwards, and during the warmer months, you'll just trap moisture between the foil and the sheathing, so we never, and I mean never, recommend the use of foil-faced bat insulation, whether it's a wall, a roof, or a floor assembly. The other situation where we see radiant barriers improperly used in walls is kind of similar to the last situation with radiant barrier sheathing. If we have a radiant barrier sheathing product, it has the potential to trap moisture within the wall assembly, whether that radiant barrier is on the interior or on the exterior. However, if that radiant barrier is facing the interior stud cavity, it's not only going to be useless because it's not facing an air gap towards the source of radiant energy, but you're going to trap moisture inside the cavity, which is a really big deal if you're building in a mixed climate or a cold climate when vapor drive is predominantly from the inside outwards. If you want to install a radiant barrier in your wall assembly, it needs to be on the outside of the wall facing the cladding with an air gap between the cladding and the radiant barrier, which could be provided just by your standard rain screen, and you should only install a radiant barrier in your walls in IECC climate zones 1 and 2. You probably would get away with it in climate zone 3, but depending on where you're located in zone 3, it might depend. As usual, you need to use your judgment on these things, and it's better to have no vapor barrier in your assembly than to have one in the wrong place. Now, for those who are still saying that, oh, you still get the energy efficiency benefits of the low emissivity of the foil, you need to understand that the actual benefits of this low-E foil are so minuscule in a well-insulated assembly, and that the risks of having the radiant barrier in the wrong location are so high from a hygrothermal perspective in terms of trapping moisture that you're much better off just insulating slightly more to compensate. Studies conducted as far back as the 80s showed that radiant barriers provide little to no measurable benefit once attic insulation exceeds R30, as conductive and convective heat transfer become the primary modes of heat loss or heat gain. Again, it is better to have no vapor barrier than to have one in the wrong place, and we need to be thinking about radiant barriers as vapor barriers. Now, there are some products that are perforated and claim to allow some water vapor to pass through the radiant barrier. Now, personally, I haven't seen any evidence or testing of this where it clearly demonstrates the effectiveness, but what I can tell you is that the effectiveness of a vapor barrier is a direct function of surface area. If I poked holes through 10% of the surface of a vapor barrier, that vapor barrier is still going to be 90% effective. So is that really going to allow enough vapor to pass through to avoid trapping moisture in the sheathing? I mean, maybe if air is allowed to circulate through those holes. But I'd say that's a risk we aren't willing to take, especially since we can just insulate more and then eliminate this problem entirely. So, key takeaways. Your radiant barrier is a vapor barrier. You need to be careful about where you're installing it in the assembly, and you need to make sure that you're providing a path for moisture to dry out if it gets inside. The best location for a radiant barrier is going to be on the exterior of your roof, facing an air gap, whether it's a radiant barrier underlayment in combination with a vented roof covering or a reflective roof covering itself. We really don't want a radiant barrier anywhere on the interior side of the building because you have a high risk of trapping moisture. We'll put some links in the description below with some articles and other resources on this topic if you want some additional information. Give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more weekly building science videos. And head over to our website at asiri-designs.com where we have over 150 free building science articles that cover a wide range of topics. Links will be in the description below. For now, good luck with your projects. Cheers.